Good evening, Wazambia. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, viewers. I understand that we have viewers from outside of our continent who are in different time zones. So I'll say good evening to those that it's evening, and to those that are outside of our country. Benana Bucha, I would say good morning, and I'll say good afternoon to those to whom it's in the afternoon. So, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everybody that's tuned in. And we are back with BOMA Nivantu. We BOMA Nivantu. And this evening, I'm privileged to be speaking to Dr. Ngoza, who is Director Planning and Information at the Ministry of CDF.
Yeah.
The Ministry, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's a privilege to be part of this BOMA Nivantu. And
BOMA
indeed, BOMA
Nivantu.
Nivantu.
Yes. So now, what I want to do is I want to have people, and obviously I would like to hear from you mostly about what is the mandate of the ministry, what is the ministry, why is the ministry there, and the most talked about issue for the year 2023 was CDF. And I would like you to speak to CDF and what has CDF been able to do in the year 2023, and what does it entail, the increase of the CDF, what does it entail going forward in the year 2024. So therefore, Doc, I want you to take your time and share with us the mandate of the ministry, and then probably can get into CDF being the most talked about service that you are providing to the people. I'll let you pick it up from there.
Thank you so much. And, I was wondering what to address you as. Do I address you as PS? Do I address you as Pilato? I didn't know. I was at a loss on how to address you, but whichever one comes to my mind, I will do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Pilato, thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It's a privilege, and indeed, you are so right. For some reason, the Ministry of Local Government has changed its name to Ministry of CDF, because every time you tell people you are with Ministry of Local Government, the first thing they think about is CDF. So indeed, it's a pleasure for me to be here, and just to appreciate what you're doing on this forum. I think you've really created an opportunity for people to understand. I mean, one of the things I've learned in my work is that many times we assume that people know what is going on, people know the mandates of the ministries, but only when you have interacted with people do you realize that there is need for such interactions. And so I'm really, really grateful on behalf of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to be here. More so that we even have people that are joining us from abroad. I just want to say a great hello to everybody that is joining us online. And I'm looking forward to an active interaction with everyone. Indeed, BOMA Nivantu, one of the things that Ministry of Local Government deals with are markets and bus stations and street vendors and people coming to say BOMA Yanganepo, but we forget that BOMA Nivantu. So thanks for that reminder. BOMA Kuyanganapo Nivantu Kuyanganapo. So yes, back to business. One of the key mandates of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, I'll not put them in any particular order, but it's promoting a decentralized and good local governance system. Now, what that means, local governance, basically, if I have to simplify it, we're talking about local authorities, districts as others know them, councils as others know them, and the general agenda around decentralization. So one of the key mandates for the ministry is to ensure that we do decentralize in line with the legal framework. The other one is to actually actualize the decentralization agenda and to facilitate the implementation of the devolved functions. This is where you don't know whether to address as PS Pilato. As you may be.
No, but say you are permitted, you are allowed. This is Pilato. That's why I put Pilato there.
Yeah,
No
so
more.
it took
The
a
other
bit of
stuff
time
comes
to
after
re-engineer
the
my
stuff.
mind. Yeah, so one of the things you may be aware is that, and this is more pronounced now with the new Dawn government, the decentralization agenda. So we even have some functions, 8 functions from 6 ministries that have been devolved to the local authorities. So as a ministry, one of our mandates is to ensure that these devolved functions are well managed, are well implemented at the local level. And the other thing is that we facilitate or we oversee the provision of municipal services by the local authorities. You see, most of the things we implement as a ministry are implemented through the local authorities. So when we talk about municipal services, basically we're talking about provision of roads, feeder roads, as well as urban roads. Just to be clear that we share some level of mandate with the Road Development Agency. So the Road Development Agency looks at the bigger roads. We look at the feeder roads and some urban roads. Then we also look at provision of markets and bus stations as key services. And obviously, we also look at provision of solid waste management facilities, just generally provision of municipal services that are critical for the comfortable livelihoods of people in these localities. The other aspect is looking at orderly planning, so orderly settlements. And this is done through the planning process. I don't know how many, or if you are aware of what we call integrated development plans. These are plans that are prepared by local authorities in a very consultative manner that guide the development of these localities. And as a ministry, through the Urban and Regional Planning Act, we do facilitate for these integrated development plans. One of the added mandates that came with the new Dawn government is the rural development aspect. So we do also facilitate rural development in all angles. One of the things that has been very critical in 2023 in rural development has been to facilitate the construction and rehabilitation of crossing points, but also by the virtue that we do have local authorities or councils that are in rural areas. By supporting them to provide the services they do, we are also engaged in rural development. So in a nutshell, that is the major mandate for the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
You can say that again. You can say that again. It's a myriad of work. And
Where does CDF sit, and how has that been so far?
so briefly, though I'll give a bit of a background later, but briefly, CDF has been identified as one of the ways that we can ensure decentralization. So when you look at the focus or the thinking around decentralization is really to get communities to make their decision when it comes to their development agenda. So it must be a participatory process. And when you look at CDF, it does provide for such kind of participatory development agenda. And so CDF largely has been used as a tool, one of the tools for decentralization and for ensuring that we actualize decentralization. It's not the only tool. I mean, even the devolution of functions is another tool, but decentralization has largely been because of the major fiscal transfer or transfer of monies from the center to the local authorities. So just a bit of a background on CDF, if I may. So CDF is not a new thing. And so when people keep talking about CDF, I take time to remind them that it's not new, but I will explain what makes the hype of it. So it was first introduced to Zambia in 1995. So since 1995, we've had CDF. except it's been very micro, very little money. And it started with members of parliament trying to put monies to support small projects within communities. Over the years, it has grown in terms of amounts. And so because of the importance that started being attached to CDF, it was then enshrined in the Constitution. I don't know if you are aware, Pilato, that CDF is in the Constitution, 2026 Constitution.
I think I read about it recently.
You see? Yeah. So it is in the Constitution. So it is actually legally backed. And then we also have the CDF Act number 11 of 2018, which also was really designed to actualize the constitutional provision. And so it's about that time that we saw a lot of increase now to the attention given to CDF. Now, what makes CDF now unique is that in 2021, for 2022, when the new Dawn government came, they made it a flagship program. What do I mean? They increased the quantums of CDF from I don't like to use this term, but I'll still use it, from a meager 1.6 million. I mean, yes, 1.6 may sound like some amount, but when you look at how much it was increased, because it was increased by over 1,000 percentage points to 25.7 million. So that is now what led, I think, to the hype around CDF, because it was unprecedented. And obviously it raised a lot of interest, because from 1.6 million to raise it to 25.7 million, I mean,
that's a big leap, eh?
That's a huge leap, and obviously it raised a lot of interest. Yeah. Now, not only did it increase in amount, it also increased in the scope. What do I mean? Initially, CDF was largely around community projects. So schools, just any sort of community projects that could be undertaken under that amount. But with the increase in the amount, there was an introduction of empowerment, which included grants as well as loans. There was an introduction of bursaries, which again included secondary school boarding bursary to support the vulnerable in society. You know that there were certain children that had to drop out, not because they failed, but because they could not afford to go to boarding. Then there was also an introduction of the skills bursary. Now, the objective really was that in as much as we are growing and providing infrastructure, there's also need to locally grow the economy. And so having identified some of the challenges, especially with finances, it was felt that as part of decentralization, it would be good to provide financial facilities to, again, vulnerable groups. Vulnerable classified as women, the youth, the disabled, and obviously some vulnerable men. But yeah, the vulnerable men were not... no, that's just a joke. But yes, so it caters for the women, the youth, the disabled, and the vulnerable members of the community. So, and again, you will see that it was also considered as an opportunity to grow small and micro and small enterprises in communities. And that's why we have the loan component. So the loan component is looking at entrepreneurs that are viable but may not have the resource to grow their businesses. And that's why there's the grant component as well as the loan component. So even when you look at in terms of the quantums, the loan component is bigger. Then we looked at the skills. I mean, one of the things you will agree with me, and having known your background, is that we have a lot of unproductive youths in society. Yes. Some dropouts, some could have even finished grade 12, but they didn't have opportunities. And so the idea was, because of the vulnerability of these youths, we give them an opportunity to do some skills training. Why skills training? The idea again is that formal employment cannot absorb most of these youths. So now, if they are trained and given certain skills, they could either undertake businesses using their skills. For example, if you have carpenters, you have bricklayers, they could actually be engaged on the same CDF programs so that they could use those skills to earn an income or even employ others. So that is the thinking around the skills bursaries. Again, it's really not limited. Yes.
Okay, sorry for cutting. I wanted to find out, what would you point to as impact or an impact of CDF for 2023? What is it that you can? Yes.
I will certainly come to that. I just thought I needed to build the context because I think we have people understanding and maybe not fully understanding. So having said that, I mean, from 2022, I would honestly agree that the 2022 was the initial year of implementation of the extended. So we did have a few, well, maybe not a few, but we did have a number of challenges associated with it being, and but having said that, it does not mean that we didn't achieve anything. Obviously, we had a lot of bottlenecks and government has been really working at addressing some of those. I could come back to that later. But yes, a number of measures have been put in place to address some of those bottlenecks that were identified. But for 2023, just to go back to the numbers, as I said, the numbers have been increasing. So in 2023, the total budget, I hope I'll get this number right. The total budget for the CDF was 4,715,218,531. Now, just to state that it includes a supplementary budget of 298,817, which was a carryover from 2022. All this money has been released. All the money was released by December 2023. So again, that's an achievement in its.
Every constituency got their share.
So every constituency got 28,313,902.01. Every constituency, the 156 constituencies covering 116 councils. So I think for me, just that in itself is a huge achievement. Yeah.
That's a huge investment in the constituency, I must say.
It is a huge investment in the constituency, and if well utilized, clearly it has, we can already see the impact. I'm sure now getting to your PS CAPE, you can attest to the fact that there's been impact and positive impact. I'll mention some of the things that we've achieved. So in 2023, I'll give you the totals. We were able to implement countrywide 3,877 community projects. So they were at different stages. Some were at implementation, some were at procurement, but a total of 3,877 community projects. Now, these community projects cover a wide range. They are in the education sector. We've heard of a number of classroom blocks that have been constructed. They are in health. We've heard of annexes that have been done. We've heard of desks. I'm sure you know the president's pronouncement.
Yes.
No child shall sit on the floor. So we've
Yes.
done the desks. We procured 156 police motor vehicles, 156 motor vehicles for monitoring of the project. And so that is part of, for example, in the education sector, about 51% of the projects that of the 3,000 are in the education sector. What are they doing? Rehabilitation of schools, construction of classroom blocks, and we are talking about countrywide. So don't ask me to name them because it's countrywide. And then we are talking about desks. So far from the CDF, we have procured over 480,000 classroom desks. Over
And these are being produced by the local people.
You may recall the pronouncement by the president that no desks shall be imported and that these should be produced locally. So yes, I can confirm that all these desks are being produced locally in country, but more so locally where there's capacity within the local authorities, within the constituencies.
There is one component you've not mentioned, which I think I
Which
bumped
one?
into. The construction of palaces for all the chiefs in the country. Is that
Yes.
is that under CDF?
Yeah,
Is that...
yes. It is under CDF. So you may also recall. So that one, it is under CDF, but we were just starting it. So we can't talk of any palace that has yet been done. If you recall, only is it October when we signed off an agreement with Zambia Correctional Services to construct a number of palaces, and a few will be done by the private sector, because we also look at supporting the private sector. And yes, this will be done using CDF.
Perfect. No, I think it's important that these things are communicated, because for some of us that have a strong connection to our villages and where we call our chiefs and kings, I think it's part of our pride is to see and point at where our chiefs stay, where our chiefs work from. So it's important that we keep mentioning some of these things, because
it's true. Now, me, I don't have a chief, so maybe that's why I overlooked it. Me, my village is in
But no,
yes.
in the CDF, there are a number of critical components, especially for concerning young people. I'm coming from a minister of young people, and I think there are critical components of young people, especially. And I'd like you to spend more time and explain how young people can take advantage of this. First of all, there is the issue of sponsorship bursaries and TVETA. I don't know how that is termed in your line of work. But the young people that are brilliant, they are intelligent, they are smart, but they would like to get into school because they're failing to get into school because they probably have financial challenges. How do these young people access this support, this bursary that is
it's available?
Yes. How do young people get that type of sponsorship? Because I know most of our young people in our rural areas that are brilliant, they are smart, but because of their financial economic status, they find it difficult to get into school. How does CDF come in, and how do young people like that get assisted?
Thank you so much. So yes, I spoke of two sort of bursaries. There's the boarding school bursary as well as the skills. I can tell that you have a bit of a bias towards skills, but I'll still speak to both because they still address both young people. So one of the things for bursaries, for both bursaries, skills and boarding school, you go through what we know as ward development committees. So each constituency has wards, and each ward has a committee of members of the community, which is referred to as the Ward Development Committee. And I think this is one of the things that I would like to urge our colleagues, Zambians, to just have interest in knowing who is your councillor, because they are becoming more and more critical. I mean, they should be able to help us, because councillors are members of the WDCs. So the starting point is to go to the WDCs, and obviously they'll request for a number of documentation and proof to just show that you live in that constituency or you live in that ward, you qualify for the support. So basically, that is the starting point. However, for those that may not know their wards and all, it would be helpful to go to the local authorities, because then when they go to the councils, they will be able to, they'll be guided on who would help them. Because the process is such that it starts at community level. So the community identifies all these aspects. They will identify potential beneficiaries. They will identify the community projects to be implemented. They'll identify every aspect of the CDF. But obviously, one thing we've also noted is that there's very little information around it. And for some reason, people fear to go to the council. The council is there to serve. The council is there to help. If you can't speak to the council about it, at least go and ask, who is my councillor? Then
Doc,
the
understanding is that the officers at the council, Balashauta Sana, Ninkaka. How do we?
I can't confirm, neither can I deny. Yes, we've had some of those, but I think more and more now we see a lot more openness, a lot more flexibility even to the councils. And I mean, we understand that in these jobs, you will always find a few people that may give you challenges here and there, but that is not to say people shouldn't go there. Obviously, you may find a few wrong elements there, but you will also find, but also let's use our members of parliament, because members of parliament, remember, they also sit. So from the, I didn't finish the process. So from the WDCs, whatever is done there, it's submitted to what is called Constituency Development Fund Committee, CDFC. So at the CDFC level, that's where they'll review all the submissions from all the wards and then prioritize. Now we know that our members of parliament do sit in these CDFCs. And that's why I was saying, where you don't know where to start from, the members of parliament could really help, and they could tell you which WDC to see, because they do sit in these CDFCs. And I think you are right that there's a lot of education that we still need to do around what the processes are like and how do we get people more engaged. I think that is well understood. So basically, that is the process. So it starts at community level, where you come from, the ward. That is the starting point. Actually, below the wards, by the way, I don't know if you're aware that we even have zones. So there are a number of zones that make up a ward, then wards make up a constituency, and then a combination of constituencies make up the council.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, Doc,
yes.
there is a loan component in the CDF.
Yes.
How do people who qualifies for those loans, and how do they access it?
So again, it starts the same process. However, for the loan component, because we did note that local authorities are not in the business of managing funds, and the likelihood of the risk factor would be higher if we left it to, so it is being managed by the banks. So commercial banks are managing the loan component. However, the process of application still is the same, starting from the WDCs up to the CDC, Constituency Development Fund Committee, CDFC. At that level, one of the things that is critical is to show proof that your program, your project is viable. So it's the viability. I mean, you can't ask for a loan if you can't show that you'll be able to pay for it. Pilato, allow me to just give you some statistics to show that we are actually moving. I mean, despite the issues, as you're saying, that people may not know. So just for 2023, we had 28,512 beneficiaries for secondary school bursaries. Again, these numbers are across the country. In some numbers, they are high. In some areas, they are not, especially where we don't have a lot of boarding schools. So we have seen that disparity. Where there are not so many boarding schools, we've seen that the numbers are not high. Then for skills development, we have had in 2023, 57,921 youths. Now, this is not a cumulative number. So I'm not counting from 2022. This is strictly a 2023 number. So you see that there is impact. Probably the question would be, what next for them when they get trained? That's a subject for another day. Then when it comes to grants, so for 2023, we had 16,040 beneficiaries for grants. Now, that is a slight reduction in terms of numbers, because for 2022, we had 16,523. However, what we've noticed now, in terms of the quantum, in terms of the amount, so out of the 16,000, the amount spent is 517 million. But out of the bigger number, we saw that the amount was 419. And what we think now is that there is more focus around people taking this component a bit seriously with better kind of projects that may be a little more expensive, but in terms of value, they are better value. So that is the general interpretation of that. Just on a light note, I want to tell you, when the component was introduced, you know, we had people confessing that no, when they were told about the grant, they were saying they can't get because in Nivau Satanist, and so we've had, no, but it's true. So we've had such incidences where people just didn't believe that we have, including bursaries. They would say, we ndalama zachoka kutizini Nivau Satanist. So we've had a lot of talking that needs to be done. So for loans, as you know, we delayed a little bit in starting the loans because we needed to put things in place with the banks. So we've had 4,641 beneficiaries for the loan component for 2020.
So what would you say? Because I want to also get to reading people's comments and questions now.
Yes.
What would you say to those that keep saying that CDF is a myth? Those that feel that CDF what did you say?
I don't believe that those that say it genuinely. Maybe that would be my starting point. Why do I say that? If you read the news almost every day, there's an article, and you say, we'll show you what was and what is. So, I mean, in all honesty, even if it were a myth, and we are giving numbers of real people, these are real people. If you went to the council and said, give me a list of the beneficiaries, they'll give you a number of real people. So how much of a myth can it be that you even have real individuals that are benefiting from it? We've seen desks being shown on TV. Honestly, and that's why I say, maybe when it started, one would have said it's a myth. But by now, to keep on saying it's a myth, then people are just not genuine. And so I just want to assure the Zambians and everyone out there that there's nothing mythical about the CDF. It is real. People are benefiting. We are seeing it changing lives. I mean, we have a number of annexes that have been constructed maternity annexes that have been constructed. We have a number of police posts that have been just recently, just last year. You know, when I say last year, it sounds like very far. Just somewhere in November, 2 months ago, the president flagged off 156 motor vehicles, police motor vehicles, labeled CDF. How much of a myth can that be, Shua Bapilato? Nangu therefore kulandalanda. Pardon my them.
Let's respond to questions from our viewers and then we'll continue the chat.
Yes, please.
This one is coming from Joseph Albert Kaluba. And Joseph Albert Kaluba is asking, can individuals access the CDF loans?
Yes, I've just given the numbers. People can access the CDF loans and have been accessing the CDF loans. The only thing is that you just have to ensure that you have a viable project, because it's a loan, it's expected to be paid back. And so you have to show proof that your project is able to pay back that loan. That is the difference with the grant. But yes, simply I can say yes, people can access the CDF loan and have been able to access the CDF loan. I'll just want to encourage him, if he's interested, to already engage his counselor to find out the WDCs where they are. He can even go to the local authorities. They will guide him properly, but let him have a viable project.
This one is coming from Simwanza Geoffrey, who says, Dr. Ngoza, there are people who are currently not in communities they didn't grow up from. For example, if I'm from Southern Province and I'm schooling in Lusaka, how do I get along with the counselor?
Mr. Simwanza Geoffrey, you don't need to get along with the counselor. You just need to know him so that he can assist you. So wherever you reside in, you don't have to go to the constituency where you come from, but your residence, where you reside in, the constituency or ward where you reside in. That is all that matters. However, if you are in school, for example, in Lusaka, the best would be to apply where you came from, because you are just temporarily in school. And obviously the reason is that if you need support, you must have somebody within that community, the church, the chief, or somebody, a person that can recommend you. And we are talking of notable people. We're talking of a church leader. We are talking of the chief or even the counselor that can recommend and confirm that you are a resident of that area. I hope I have been able to respond.
Nathaniel says, what happens when one fails to pay back the loan due to unforeseen uncertainties?
Mr. Nathaniel, I hope you are not planning to get a loan and fail to pay back. So basically what it is that if you get a loan, I mean, obviously the council, the government through the council will still have interest. So if there's any property you buy, for example, if you get a loan for a business and you have a property that is associated with that loan, for example, a vehicle, it will be registered in the name of the council. By the way, that is one thing that I should state. So if you buy any sort of assets with the loan, it is not your asset until you pay back the loan. And obviously, our assumption is that when people are applying for these loans, they would have done their risk assessment. And that's why the bank also comes in to ensure that the risk assessments are done. And we understand that there are some unforeseen circumstances that may come along the way. But in so doing, you go back to the financing agency and indicate how you will pay. I mean, there are always these ways that it can be redone, but the idea is a loan should really be a revolving fund so that it be paid and others benefit from it. But you forfeit your asset. Whatever asset you buy out of it, you forfeit it.
This one is coming from Kevin Chsandi, who is watching from YouTube. And he says, is it possible for one cooperative to apply for a grant at constituency and that is using same business proposal, or you can be disadvantaged despite the two organizations being different?
Okay, this is a very interesting Very interesting question. Well, as much as possible, we don't want to have duplication of beneficiaries because we want to have many beneficiaries benefit. And maybe the question is, why would you want to apply for a grant when CEC is funding you? Really, I know it's human nature, but as much as possible, we do liaise and check. We could have weaknesses along the way, and yes, some of these things could have happened and we may not have known about it. But as much as possible, we want everybody to be a beneficiary. So if you are applying to CEC, wait until CEC responds. And if you do benefit from there, why would you then want to come and get a grant? I mean, is it just the spirit of wanting free money? No. So as much as possible, you are just supposed to, we will not disadvantage you per se, but we will ensure that we check and you can only benefit from one of them and not both.
This one is coming from Joseph Albert Kaluva, who is saying, what is the plan limit and when does one start to pay back the loan and is the interest? I don't know. I'm sure he's asking how much is the interest.
Yeah, the interest is 5% simple interest. So obviously, as soon as you get the loan, you should be able to show in your plan when you first get when you are able to pay. And also the repayment periods differ from different amounts. So yeah, there'll be 6 months up to about 2 years, depending on the amounts that you get.
Perfect. This one is coming from Mr. Alex Nirenda. For bursaries, my question is, what qualifications do you see fit for someone to get one? Or it's everyone who applies who gets access to bursary as long as they want one?
I wish you could specify which bursary. I'm assuming this is the skills bursary. And as indicated, you must show proof that you are vulnerable and you are unable to pay for yourself. So it's not like just a matter of wanting, it's a matter of being able to qualify. But also this one, you do not necessarily need to have a grade 12. So there's recognition that there are some skills that can be granted to grade 9 dropouts. They can be granted to grade 7 dropouts. So I think the first thing is your vulnerability. And is it a skill course? I don't know if I'm making sense. It has to be a skill. It doesn't have to be. So you cannot apply for a bursary when you're at UNZA because that is not considered a skill. So you must show proof, firstly, that you have been accepted at a TEVET registered institution. Secondly, that you are vulnerable. And thirdly, that you have applied for a skill that is defined in Zambia as a skill. Yes.
Artists are considered skills because that I would like to apply as an artist before.
Complicated. No, I mean, we've had actually a request from the Ministry of Artists trying to see how we can embed in artists. I think basically the interest has been even from the grants component and from the skills. No man shall skill I'm an artist was ambiguous. Take one fear na fear.
The game it can say me that coming on the really.
But drama, but I didn't have to train for any skill like that.
No, but what we're aiming for is to now add a skill to talent, so we can sharpen the talent for it to be easy to market and even add value to it. So we are coming. I
think that is a point that can be discussed. Then you can be supported.
Perfect. Yeah. This one is coming from Inutu Muyunda. Says the CDF is a very welcome move and it's good for the growth of our economy, especially SMEs are participating fully in the projects. However, there is an urgent need for the ministry to look into the pricing of the works, e.g., RDA prices for roads are different from the local authorities, yet standards are expected to be the same. Kindly look into it. I also propose that separate procurement units be established for CDF projects to expedite the process.
Raimu too, I think this is more of a recommendation.
Yes.
which is well appreciated. And yes, in terms of standards are given. And in terms of pricing, we depend on the pricing index that is developed by the ZPPA, the Zambia Public Procurement Authority. The idea of establishing another procurement unit, I'm just not sure. I don't think that's a sustainable way of doing things. Probably we talk about strengthening them rather than establishing, because CDF, like any other community projects implemented under the council, is undertaken by the council. So even when you look at CDF, everything is done by the council. Probably the recommendation would be, let us strengthen these units and the councils generally to manage the work that has come with CDF. But to establish another unit may not be a very sustainable option in the long run. But yes, we've taken note of the recommendation.
There's some kind expressions from Mary Johnson, who says CDF has really helped a lot. I have witnessed this because I would say I'm one of the people who have benefited from this. You can imagine me coming from a very poor family that cannot afford 2 meals in a day, and there I am obtaining a diploma from CDF. May God bless you people.
That is a testimony to those that still think it's a myth.
Yes.
Mary, tell everybody that CDF is not a myth, and we do have beneficiaries. Thank you so much for the kind words.
I'm thinking we have a lot of those. I'm trying to go for the questions, but we have a lot of those.
No, but I'm glad. I really thought I would be having a lot of, but it's good that we can have people confirming really that CDF is making a difference.
It's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Maybe I get another place because I want to go for the question.
You will not get them. You have 126 comments, no questions.
There's one from Wise Kapepe who says, how long does it take for a loan to be approved? I think this is done by the bank.
Yeah. It's really done. It shouldn't take long, but obviously the bank will have to do a bit of due diligence, or will have to also do a bit of analysis of the proposal. Obviously, it will take longer than the grants, but it really shouldn't take long. But it varies, honestly. It varies from application to application.
Okay. This one is coming from Chris Mwemba. And Chris Mwemba says, this is wonderful. Continue enlightening the good citizens of Zambia of the good things that the new Dawn government has done. Such initiatives have helped a lot of citizens in this country.
Again, it's just an accolade to the new government. To the new Dawn government.
This one is coming from the bank and Banda. Machine.
Everybody is my brother. You don't work pattern in it.
Well, I was blank. I really didn't know that the new Dawn has done so much things. Thank you for such a program, PS. May God continue blessing you. Oh, that's very good.
It is very good. So you see how people may not know things that are happening because they are not informed.
Are there any initiatives to enlighten the communities on how they can access and be participants in the CDF disbursement and activities?
Yes. So one of the things we've done this year, hoping to, not this year, last year, hoping to actualize this year is the development of particularly a communication strategy for the CDF. So we note that there is a gap there, and we have drafted a communication strategy, which we are working at all the local authorities adapting it. But besides that, they are undertaking what is referred to as CDF hour. So each local authority, each constituency is expected to have the CDF hour every week. This and using community projects. I mean, community radios, wherever they are. And this, I think, has been going on. It's part of the budgets that the local authorities are doing. So those are some of the initiatives going on. I think almost all the local authorities are implementing this CDF hour. It's meant for such interaction. But I think we still note that there's still a lot more we need to do around informing the citizens and around spreading the word on CDF. So yes, from the ministry, we do what we can, but also the local authorities are being encouraged. But Wapilato, I'm sure you can attest to the fact that but we are hearing a little bit more about CDF than previously. I think there's a lot, almost every day on ZNBC, there's something. So we've also, we are also working with the local ZNBC radio, I mean TV and radio, but the local, what is it? Where they use local language.
So the Radio One.
Radio One, Kuliakwine. So we are working with them to now translate some of these things, documentaries in local language. So yes, there are a few initiatives here and there, but this is where again I appeal to BOMA BANTU. Let us work together for those that can come through to support government spread the word about CDF, because honestly CDF is for everyone across the country. It does not select. We have 156 constituencies across Zambia. Dayaba regional, it's nothing to do with which party. It's a Zambian program to assist all constituencies develop. So indeed, we can have a lot of partnerships to support the communication agenda.
Perfect. This is coming from Mr. Nathaniel again. Doc, how do you track these quachas that go into various districts to make sure productive projects are done, especially on the young people part?
I'm assuming again these are grants and loans. I wish he can be a little more specific when he's asking, but we have a monitoring mechanism. So we don't do it from the center. The local authorities themselves do monitor. So when you get a grant, they will monitor what you're doing and how you are doing it. And this is how we actually have these documentaries that are aired. It's really as part of monitoring of what is being done. Maybe one aspect that I could talk about is when giving the grants, there's one aspect probably which needs to be looked at and how it can be strengthened, training the people that receive these grants. We still have that as a weak point, but that is not to say that they are not followed up to ensure that their programs are viable and they are doing well. So yes, there's still this gap, and I'm surprised nobody has spoken about it. Are we offering training to the ones that benefit the grants? Not as yet. In some local authorities, that is being done, but it's not really done nationwide. But for the loans component, it's a responsibility of the banks to offer some sort of training, financial management, and the general business sort of training for the beneficiaries of the loans. I thought I could just mention that.
This one is coming from Elijah Excellence Katuka. It says,
By Excellence.
Excellence. I think in the our hardworking PS for local. I just want to consult if the CDF loans are also available for the disabled, or you considering the status of disability, of course. We understand disability doesn't hinder ability. What do you consider in that situation?
Actually, we do not disadvantage anyone when it comes to loan. What matters is the viability of the project. And I think there's also a lot, we are actually encouraging the disabled to actively participate in these loans. And remember, even when I was speaking about the grants, one of the things I mentioned as the disadvantaged group are the disabled. So no, we do not look at the ability in terms of physical ability to do certain things. Even the disabled can benefit and have benefited. I wish I had the numbers for the organizations of the disabled that have benefited, but yes, they have benefited. And so a simple answer is that we do not disadvantage anyone based on their physical abilities.
Thank you, Doc. This one is saying, This is under G. What kind of projects are prioritized when giving CDF? I don't know,
Viable
CDF.
projects. Viable
Agriculture
projects.
or transport?
No, Pilato, viable projects.
Perfect.
If a project in transport is viable, it will be considered. If a
Thank you.
project in agriculture is viable, it will be considered. It is viable projects.
This one is coming from Mr. Masliso Ngenda, who's saying, let this mass sensitization be taken seriously. This is for you, director. Let
Yes.
this mass sensitization be taken seriously through TV, radio, newspaper, and other larger media platforms. PS should take this concern seriously. You are guided, director. You are guided.
Evongenda, Lutumeza Hulu, we've been guided and we shall take it seriously. No, we hear you. We really hear you. But also, may you people that are listening be ambassadors of this message. As I said, let us collaborate. Sirionse ati BOMA yanganepo, muntu ni BOMA. Yeah, no, but it's taken seriously. I think this is, as I said, one of the things that we've noted that we need to really work on. And yes, we take the recommendation.
I'll take this as the last one again. It speaks to the same thing. Says I hate such programs also to be televised on TV stations so that the entire people in our country can witness what the government is doing through CDF. I think it speaks the same thing that Wongenda shared. This one. Can someone apply for CDF alone? PS.
Again, this is where I wish people can be, whereas I wish you could be specific. CDF, there's bursary for boarding. You can apply for a project, not to undertake a project yourself, but to say, apatwava, road dayaba wino. So to lomba komuli CDF, mukatu fix the road or the bridge. As an individual, you can go to the WDC and say, this is what we want. But at the end of it, it's the WDCs to take it. So yes, for bursary, for empowerment, we've been encouraging cooperatives. Again, it's because we want, I think it's easier when you pull resources together as a cooperative. And that's why we are discouraging individuals. But we've seen individuals apply for loans because at the end of it, or the loan, but for grants, the focus has been on cooperative, even for loans, but we've also witnessed individuals applying for loans.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'll end there, but I'll invite
Before
you to share your
just to tell you that we've also bought a lot of earth-moving equipment under CDF. So we'll see a lot of feeder roads being done. Yes, I think that's another huge milestone.
Every constituency has some earth-moving machine.
Some of us just knew these machines with CDF. Before then, we didn't know them.
We we used to call them at Mazembe.
Mazembe.
Yes, now Mazembe.
Yes.
All right, Doc, I would like us to end there, but I'll invite you to share your concluding remarks on that particular thing that you feel you should have mentioned or feel is important for people to know. Probably you could share some cholera alerts information. I don't know what you feel you need to speak to in your concluding remarks.
Outside the CDF, yes. Thank you so much again, PS, for this opportunity. It was a great pleasure to interact. I actually was wondering how one hour would be, but it's interesting that it seemed like short. So I'm so grateful, and thank you everybody that has been listening in for your comments. We take your comments seriously, and we are grateful. Yes, an alert. Cholera is real. We have it not only in Lusaka, but countrywide. But one thing I can say is that as government, we cannot fight this disease on our own. This is a disease of cleanliness, and it is a personal responsibility to ensure that your surroundings are clean. It is your personal responsibility to ensure that your neighbors' surroundings are clean. One of the things I want to personally urge people is when you find people dumping waste in undesignated areas, take it personal. Because this is where this cholera and all these diarrheal diseases are coming from. It's all about keeping our surroundings clean, washing our hands before we eat food, when we've been to the toilet, washing our hands, even when you shake someone's hand. You know, I remember how COVID really shook everybody and we were clean. We need to do the same. We can control cholera as long as we keep our surroundings clean. So I urge every Zambian, everybody that is listening in, please take it personal, because it is real and we are losing lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doc. And for those that are listening that say, Pirato Andoti, Pirato Andoti. So learn something from me. Let's keep ourselves clean. Let's keep our surroundings clean. And let's fight cholera together. Thank you very much, Doc, and good night.
Thank you.